Hi there, esteemed audience, and welcome to another episode of Middle Grade Ninja. I'm your host, Rob Kent. As you know, I'm the author of Banneker Bones and the Giant Robot Bees, and that wonderful book is available as a paperback and audiobook, or the ebook is free. Yes, free to download whenever you're watching or listening to this, wherever fine ebooks are sold. Under the super secret pen name Robert Kent, I've written some books for older readers, including a young adult novel called All Together Now, a Zombie Story. You can find out more information about me, more information about those books, and more importantly, interviews with thousands of literary agents, authors, publicists, editors, all the world's best people at middlegradeninja.com. And that's more than enough intro. I couldn't be more thrilled. We are chatting with Ellen Whitfield this morning from Book Forward. Ellen, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I am absolutely thrilled to talk with you. This is the perfect morning for us to have a conversation, and I'll tell you more about that in a moment. I've just finished the rewriting portion of a revision of a book that I'm getting ready to put out in the world. Because of that, I know that it's time, okay, well, once I get past that brutal process, it's time to start thinking about publicity. Once we get this thing launched in the world, what's that going to look like? And look at this. On this very morning, here you are, Ellen Whitfield, to tell me all about publicity and launch strategies. So I've got all kinds of questions for you. Best place to start is if you would give esteemed audience kind of an overview of your background.
Sure. Yeah. So I actually was a copy editor for a number of years at different newspapers. And then when I had a kiddo, I quickly realized that schedule was not gonna work. So I kind of looked around, and I've always been a big reader. And I happened to see an opening with Books Forward, formerly JKS Communications, and, kind of weaseled my way in there. It was a very fortuitous timing. So I've been with the company for about 5 years now, and have learned a ton of different things, and also have gotten to put to use my copy editing skills, my joy of reading. It's really the perfect job for me, and I feel very lucky. I work on the publicity side, and I also oversee other publicists, as well as our digital marketing team. Kind of have a hand in everything, and I love our company. I love the authors we work with, and I just feel really lucky I get to do something so cool, because it's one of those jobs you don't really necessarily know as a job when you're growing up, as a kid. So I feel very lucky that I found it.
And I saw on the website as of this recording, your title is Publicity Director at this point.
I think that's right. Yep.
You're training all the incoming publicists.
Yes. So I train our interns, I train our contractors and our publicists as they kind of move up and become more senior. We go through a lot of different training processes, and I've kind of helped to put those in place with the help of a lot of other people. It is certainly not a solo mission by any means. I do much better work when I work with other people, and that's kind of our company motto. We all work really well together, which has been nice. But yeah, that is one of the parts of my job that I really love, is kind of getting to brainstorm different things with all the publicists, which is really great.
So, I mean, you're the perfect person for me to be talking to, because I'm going to pull up the Book Forward website in a bit here, and we'll go through almost like an application process, so you can walk me through what all the authors watching or listening can maybe expect. Before we do that, I want to talk just a little bit about your background and how you become a publicity director.
Sure.
So, well, let's start with copy editing. It's not a good schedule for having a child.
Well, copy editing at a daily newspaper is not. You work nights, you work weekends, you work holidays, so it is it's tough. I mean, you love it when you're in your early 20s and at a college newspaper, but then you get a little older and you're tired all the time. So that was a little tough with a newborn. And I loved working in a newspaper, and my husband still works at a newspaper, so big believer in the press. But yeah, schedule wise, it was a little tough, and so I was like, man, I always wanted to work in books. Kind of seemed like a pipe dream, but I was like, let me see what's out there. Just worked out really, really well.
You were a big reader as a child on, right?
Oh God, yes. I mean, I used to set an alarm at night to read under the covers after my parents had gone to sleep because I needed to squeeze it. Yeah, no. Uh, no, because I wasn't getting enough reading time during the day. So I would wake up at night and read under the covers for a while. And yeah, I mean, my mom used to tell us stop reading in the car because, you know, she wanted us to like talk to her. And so, yeah, I mean, I grew up reading at my parents. I was lucky enough to have parents who just read to me all the time. So I grew up surrounded by books, and that definitely played a big part in who I am today.
So when you're coming up on graduation, you're looking toward journalism right off the bat. Or are you thinking,
Yeah,
oh,
that's
I'll
pretty
become an
much.
author?
I have never, to be honest with you, I have never had a dream to become an author because it seems really hard. And I am not somebody who wants to do that soul, you know, bearing journey. I don't think that I have that in me. I mean, I'll have ideas every now and then, but I never ever follow through on them. So maybe one day I will, but yeah, after, you know, I pretty much studied journalism in college and then kind of just, you know, I worked at the student media newspaper, and kind of just knew that I was going to go into newspapering as I graduated. And then I guess I always just had kind of books in the back of my mind, but I didn't know book publicity was a job. You know, I just thought, you know, you're an editor or you know, write reviews. And I didn't know if I wanted to do that and or would be good at it. And so now I actually write reviews for, you know, for fun, and I work on the publicity side of things for work. So it's the best of both worlds.
Something I saw you worked at a few different media outlets with the Dallas Morning News, the Waco Tribune Herald, some others. And then I saw that you were coordinating book coverage for the Advocate newspaper of Baton Rouge in New Orleans.
Yeah. So when I was at the Advocate, which has papers in Acadiana, which is Lafayette, and then Baton Rouge and New Orleans, I wrote book reviews there, and that was a wonderful. I got, you know, that was so much fun to get to do. And so now I do that on the side for the New York Journal books, and then I have a Bookstagram account where I do that for fun as well. So but yeah, it's definitely a different experience, you know, writing the book reviews and then getting into the actual book publicity, like really the meat of things.
I see. I thought I had saw that you were doing more than 100 plus books per year at one point, or maybe currently.
Oh, that's supposed to be my dirty little secret.
Oh,
That's kind of embarrassing. You know, it's an escape from reality. And especially the past 2 years, it's just been like, let me not watch the news. I'm going to read this book about space. Um, but yeah, I mean, as you can see, it's an issue, you know. Yeah, last year, I think I ended on, I don't even know, maybe 160 or something like that. Yeah, it's a lot.
that might be embarrassing someplace. I can't think, not any place I'd want to go, but
It's
it's
like,
definitely not
don't
embarrassing
you
on
have
this show.
anything
That is
else going on?
aspirational here.
No, I don't have anything else going on, honestly.
So how many books are you reading then on a week? What's your regular reading schedule?
I usually, I would guess I finish maybe two or three a week. I mean, it depends on the week. And honestly, now that we're kind of starting to get back into things, it'll probably go down. But that's what it's kind of been the past. And of course, it depends on the book too. You know, I'm reading the love songs of W.E.B. Du Bois, and that's like an 800-page literary fiction novel. That'll probably take me 3 weeks to get through. But if it's just like a space adventure, I can get through that in, you know, 3 or 4 days. And that's usually I try to kind of mix it up and do some of different genres.
Are you still setting an alarm to wake up after everybody's asleep to do a little
God,
reading?
no. I miss little Ellen who used to do that. What a naive fool. Sleep. That's where you need to focus.
Are you some of those audiobooks as well?
Oh,
Or
absolutely. Yeah. You know, I'll set a TBR for the month and I'll kind of look and see what my library has available as audiobook, but I also use Libro FM for audiobooks. I have a membership there. And so I get a credit every month and can kind of pick and choose what I want to listen to. But that's a big thing for me as a mom, you know, doing dishes, driving around in the car, whatever else. It makes it a lot easier to get through books, and also like the experience for some books of listening to them, and the narrator's choices and things like that are really fun.
Yeah, that's one of the big things that helped get me through this pandemic. Knock on wood that we're on our way out. I had my membership with the local library, and they've got two different apps that you can download as many audiobooks
It's
as you
so
want.
great. I feel so lucky. Like I'll look and I'll be like, they have this, they have this, they have this. And so I can kind of switch back and forth. If I'm reading at night, I'll read the print version. If I'm driving somewhere, I can pick it up where I left off in the audio version. It's awesome.
Oh,
I
you push back and
love
forth
my
from
library.
print to the that doesn't annoy you when you're reading it in one voice on the print version, and then some narrator has their take.
No, I mean, there's every once in a while I'll run across a narrator and that I do not like. And recently I read a romance book and it was like from the voice of it was narrated in the book by a female and the narrator was a male. And it kind of threw me. But it really usually doesn't bother me unless the narration is just really outstandingly bad. But that's how I read probably 50% of my books is switching back and forth between print and audio.
And do you make time for, I don't know, Netflix series that you binge or
I
video games?
do, believe it or not, it's amazing. I mostly have been rewatching things recently, but there's a couple shows that I'll try, maybe a new show every other month or so. I'm very into Avid Elementary right now. So funny. And it's Avid Elementary Day. I'm very excited. That means I can watch it tonight or watch it tomorrow morning. It's gonna be great.
And then it's you mentioned science fiction is a favorite of yours.
Absolutely.
Have absolute favorite genres, or do you like a little bit of everything?
I like a little bit of everything. I would say science fiction is probably my favorite. I read a lot of fantasy. I've been reading more romance. I tend to only pick and choose. I'm very picky about like middle grade and YA. Because I know those are written for a younger audience, and I don't want it to like, my review of being like rolling my eyes at the young adults. Well, they're teenagers. Of course, you're gonna roll your eyes at them, so I want to give them a chance. What else? Yeah, I mean, I like literary fiction. I actually thought I hated historical fiction, but I got kind of into that last year. So, but yeah, sci-fi will always be my favorite. I have my Becky Chambers books right there. She's my absolute fave, and I'm always looking for my next space opera adventure.
So, for all those listening who are thinking, man, I would like to get into the publicity game, how do you go about getting a job there at you said JKS was at the time?
Yeah, we used to be JKS. We're Books Forward now. We switched in 2020 to kind of have a more all-encompassing name and celebrate 20 years as a company. So a lot of schools, if you're going to college, a lot of schools have publicity programs, or if they don't have anything that's like focused on publicity or literary, anything like that, there is probably a general PR program, which is a really great start to have. And then I think job wise, when you're looking, a lot of publishers have in-house publicity teams, marketing teams that you can look and become a part of. A lot of those are located in New York, but the pandemic has made virtual work obviously a much bigger thing. And then there are also a ton of like small publishers, indie publishers, vanity publishers all around the country that probably have smaller publicity teams, but they may just have one job. But those are the kind of places that I think can be a really, really great job or something to look at after people are graduating. So yeah, I mean, I always encourage people to just kind of start there, because there are independent publicity companies like Books Forward, but those are a smaller number. And so publishers are a great place to start, because almost all publishers have a publicity team, and that's a great place to look, and we'll give a lot of different options.
So you get in there 5 years ago, and now you're publicity director, which on paper looks like pretty tremendous. You're training the publicists as they come in the door. So they come in and they say, Ellen Whitfield, we want to be as wonderful a publicist as you. What does that training look like? Where do you start?
So we generally start with like the basics. Okay, here's how our systems work, and things like that. But then we start with pitching. How do we pitch? How do we reach out to an outlet, but we make it personalized. We let them know, like, we're reaching out to you because we think you would really love this book, not because you're on our list and we're just going through our list, crossing people off. We're like, we saw that you read this book and really enjoyed it, and this has a lot of the same themes. Or we saw that you interviewed this author. This author is really, similar, or is completely opposite. And, it might be fun to kind of read those and compare them, or whatever the case may be. So we want people to know when we're reaching out to them that we're reaching out to them for a reason. And that, it seems simple on paper, but journalists and bloggers and people like that get so many pitches every day. I mean, you probably know, I'm sure you get pitched a lot to have people on your show. We want people to know that we're reaching out to them because we want them, not because we're just, going through a list. So doing that, writing press kits and press releases is another part of training, which, it's something that is helpful for every author to have, because they can send it out to anybody they're in touch with, so that the people that they're talking with have all the basic information. If it's a bookseller, they have the ISBN, they have the ordering information. If it's somebody that's interviewing them, okay, great. They have talking points on what the author's really passionate about, so they can kind of say, oh, here's what a great interview would look like, anything like that. And so that's a lot of work, training people how to write a really good press kit that's going to look great for an author. And then just kind of, a lot of my job is honestly helping people stay organized and helping people kind of figure out strategies for getting through their emails, or, working with authors and how to work with different kinds of authors, because different authors have different personalities, and different genres need different levels of research and brainstorming and things like that. So a lot of my job is, okay, in this situation, we would do this, but in this slightly different situation, we would approach it differently. And I think sometimes it's just helpful to have somebody to go over things with, rather than, I always tell my publicists, I don't want you working in a vacuum, because that's lonely and it's hard. And I want you to have somebody you can bounce ideas off of. And I want you to have somebody who can look at your pitches and say, oh, I think this headline works better, or whatever the case may be. So, once I kind of get them trained and up and running, it's a lot of my job is, how's your workload? Are you feeling like you're still staying organized, and just kind of looking over things for them and helping them out in that way.
Obviously, of course, the pandemic has thrown everything off. But again, hopefully we're coming back to some semblance of normal.
Knock on wood.
But prior to that, is everybody coming into one office, one central location? Or are you training people virtually even before everyone had to?
Yeah, so I actually have been working virtually before the pandemic. We have an office in Nashville, and we have an office in New Orleans. I live in Baton Rouge, which is about an hour outside of New Orleans. So I do a lot of the training virtually. I was having interns from LSU, which is in Baton Rouge, and training with them in person. But it wasn't not a huge leap for me to kind of move everything virtually, because I was lucky enough to have one of our team members, Hannah, worked with me to set up a training system. And so kind of by the time the pandemic happened, we had a training system that was like rock solid in place. And we'll go through and make adjustments to it, but having that system in place to say, like, step one, day one, like, all right, let's set up your email, let's set up your signature, that kind of basic stuff. And then, 2 weeks later, we're getting into the nitty gritty of, how to write a pitch for a Southern magazine or something super specific. And kind of moving through that training in a 2-week period was really helpful to already have set up and get going. And it did not make a huge difference to change that from doing it in person with those LSU interns to doing it virtually.
Okay, so email signature. What's some basic information that every publicist and every author should have in their signature?
So we have, I think for publicists, we have, our name, our email address, which I'm always like, do I need my email address if I'm but just put it, I don't know. We have our logo that links to our website. I have a sign up link for our BFF newsletter, which is like an influencer newsletter. And then some of our publicists have links to blog posts that they've written, whether it's on our blog or on Writer's Digest or anything like that. I have my currently reading, because I find that can spark conversations with people sometimes. And then I have my pronouns, and I encourage authors to do most of the same information. Website, absolutely. Your website should have pre-order links on there, but can't hurt to do pre-order links in your signature as well, because I find that the less clicks people have to go down, the less work you have to make people do, the better. Any kind of posts that you've written, guest posts, guest articles, anything like that is really helpful. Currently reading can be good. I think pronouns is really helpful to have. But yeah, I think that's the basic stuff.
Well, I have an idea, but just so it's you saying it, why are pronouns important to have in your signature?
I think including pronouns is just a way to communicate with people that you are open, and if they are unsure if they use they them pronouns, they may not be super sure if you're going to be receptive to that. And I think that doing that communicates your openness, and saying like, hey, I'm Ellen, I use she her pronouns, will help them be more comfortable if they want to introduce their pronouns as well.
And then as far as websites go, I'm going to put my main website, and then I want to put my Facebook, my Twitter, my Instagram, do I want to have all of those? Do I want to have 5 links, or do I want to cut it to 3?
It's kind of up to you. I know a lot of authors will have that on their website, but again, the less clicks that you can make people do, I think the better. And especially if there's social media profiles where you're more active, like say you're more active on Instagram and Twitter, maybe including those. Or if you want to include everything, if you're, try to do everything across the board, that can be great as well.
And then does it matter what order they're in? Like if I've got a book for pre-order, should that be link number 1? If you only click on one, click on this one? Or should it be bottom, catch your eye as you're about to leave?
Nope. First thing is best, I think. As soon as you can get people interested in pre-ordering, that would be my number 1 thing to do.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, let's talk getting a campaign launched. So if I go to the Books Forward website as of this recording, so as of right now, and I go to the Get Started page, you want to know my name. It's Rob Kent. You want to know my email, my phone number, and then you want to know the book title or titles and the genre. If I'm coming to you for a publicity campaign, realistically, how many books should I have in mind for us to start with?
It can be we work with debut authors. We work with authors who've written 20 plus books, and they're like, all right, I want to try something different from this one. The biggest hurdle I think that we work with is timing, because obviously, okay, I'm done. I'm, working with an editor. Now's the time to think about publicity. But a lot of people don't know that, they think, okay, I'll just work on publicity when my book comes out. But it's actually, in reality, it's better to think about that kind of when you are, 6+ months before your theoretical pub date, because that gives us a chance to get you on our schedule. And we like to work with authors 4 to 5 months, like start their campaigns 4 to 5 months before their pub date, so that we can get some coverage moving. And that pub date is all this coverage comes out for the author. So that's the biggest thing to think about is, okay, when am I theoretically going to be publishing my book? And being flexible with that. If we tell you, the end of December is probably not a good time, thinking about a January pub date may be more beneficial to you, or something like that. But that's the biggest thing that I think a lot of authors struggle with, or may not think about, especially on the debut side, is, oh, publicity I need to be thinking about that pretty early on.
Okay, dumb question. There are no dumb questions.
No,
I'm going to ask, because I know somebody's maybe thinking it, is I don't have a new book coming out, but I have 10 perfectly great books that came out, I don't know, a year, 2 years ago. Why aren't they selling better? I'll come to you and you'll help me make them sell them better. Is that a good strategy, or would it be better to have a new book and then also hit the backlist while you're promoting the new book?
If you got a new book in you, that is definitely going to help. The thing we recommend most for like books that are already out is digital marketing, because that is what's going to really help move copies of books that are already out. And we do have a digital marketing team that works on that kind of stuff, and they're really great at that. If you do have a backlist and you have a new book coming out, we can also incorporate that into one kind of plan. And that's one thing that, is a little bit different about Books Forward. A lot of publicity companies have packages, I guess. A package is this, it costs this much. B package is this, it costs this much. When we get your query, which is what you're talking about on the website, where you fill out all this information on a form, our ambassadors kind of reach out to each author and say, and they get a call set up, and they kind of talk about goals, they talk about budget and things like that, and then we put together a plan that is different for each author. So that might be, okay, publicizing your new book and doing digital marketing for these 5 backlist titles, or it might be doing digital marketing for the new book and the old books, or it can be really anything. It's just very dependent on what the author's goals are and what the author's budget is, and what if this is their only book and this is like what they want to do the push in, that proposal is going to look a lot different than if it's an author's first book and this is like they want this to be their long-term career. Okay, our goal is going to be looking at this book, but also long-term author branding in that case.
Gotcha. And the book ambassador that reaches out to me, is that going to be you, or is that going to be somebody you're training to be in publicity, or is that going to be somebody completely separate from the publicist?
So that's somebody separate. Yeah, we have book ambassadors that reach out, and that is their job. They put together proposals, they talk with clients on the front end, and they are going to be working on that almost exclusively. So that's a very different job, and I know the basics of what they do because we all work together, but their job looks a lot different day to day. They're talking with clients and putting together proposals on a day-to-day basis. So that's definitely a different job.
Gotcha. So unless somebody has cleverly started their own podcast and invited you to be a guest on it, they don't get to talk to you right off the bat there.
No. And honestly, they don't want to talk to me right off the bat because they'll be like, well, how much would this cost? And I'll be like, I don't know. That's just, I could guess, but it could be way off, and that would not be helpful to you. So those are the kind of people that you do want to talk to right off the bat, because they are going to be able to make decisions and tell you more information more immediately than I will.
Sure. So what comes next? Then you want to know when the fully edited manuscript's going to be available. If I'm telling you, I'm thinking I've got a book idea, I'm going to start writing it, hope to have it within a year. Is that worth even reaching out at this point?
I mean, you certainly can, especially, if it's something that you think you're going to want to do publicity for. You certainly can let us know, like, hey, I'm thinking about this. Can you just keep it on your radar? I'm a big over communicator. So I'm a big fan of knowing what's coming up, having more information than I may need. But yeah, it's usually the point where you kind of have your edited manuscript and you're kind of moving through that process of getting ready. You're thinking about a pub date because a lot of what we do is looking at the book. And so if the book's not ready yet, it's hard to get started, basically.
Gotcha. Well, maybe I don't know what the book looks like, but I can tell you about my movie proposal once I get there.
Oh yeah, that would be good too. Yeah. Never going to be mad about that.
I want to, that's all self-explanatory. You want to know when the book's being published, and then you want to know, has your book been edited by someone who specializes in books? If I say to you, no, but my mom loves it, what do we do then? Do you have recommendations for somebody who might look at it before we get started?
Yeah, we do. We have a lot of editors that we work with, and we can make recommendations, depending on the genre and budgets and things like that. But we do tend to recommend that people have books professionally edited just to give them the best chance at success, because we don't want to do publicity for a book if people are going to read it and all they're seeing are copy editing mistakes. That's not fair to the author, because they're not being judged on the content of their book, and that's what we really want for each author.
Well, it's not going to be a good look for Books Forward either, is it?
Probably not, but that was my PR answer. So.
And then what else we got here? Want to know, the cover has been designed by somebody who specializes in books. Again, if I don't have a good answer to that, do you have, or would the book ambassador have like a stable of people they might refer me to get a better cover?
We do. Yeah. I mean, that's something that we run into a lot. And it's just, as much as it's don't judge a book by its cover, that's not, that's not how it works. And people do judge books by their cover. So again, we want to give the book its best chance at success so we can make recommendations there as well. And we actually have a sister company called Books Fluent that can help authors basically walk people through their self-publishing journey. So that's something that our Books Fluent employees work with as well. They have people they work with that are editors, book cover designers, audiobook narrate. I mean, all kinds of stuff that they work with, and we can touch base with them about recommendations as well.
Sure. And if esteemed audience is wondering about a recommendation, I feel compelled to toss out novakillustration.com for Stephen Novak. He's my favorite cover illustrator because that's who designs my covers.
Hey.
So we get the cover squared away, we get the editing put away. We want to know if you're interested in producing an audiobook. Presumably they can refer me to you said book influential.
It's Books Fluent. But yeah, I mean, we work with narrators, and since we've seen such a spike in audiobook interest over the past couple of years, especially, that's something that if people have the budget for it, we highly recommend that they look into doing an audiobook as well. Because for readers like me, that's going to get me a lot more likely to read a book if I know I can listen to it. And of course, there are people out there who are audiobook, that's what they do. They listen to audiobooks. So we can reach them if we have an audiobook as well.
That makes sense. And then we get to estimated budget. So what, in an ideal world, what are some, and I know it's going to vary from project to project,
Yes.
what our goals are going to be, but what's a realistic budget for, let's say, just this is our first book. We want to test the waters before we write additional books. If I come to you and I say my budget's $500, are we done talking? Where do we need to be?
Yeah, so that's $500 is probably just not going to be enough to get us going. We generally work more in the range of like $15,000 to $20,000 for long 6-month campaigns, and that is basically to give us the ability to do everything we need to do to give the book its best chance at success. We do more targeted campaigns that are, a little bit less expensive, and we do a lot of campaigns that have all the bells and whistles closer to like the tens of thousands, closer to the $100,000 range. I mean, but that's one of the nice things about the way that we do campaigns is that everything is really, really okay. Well, let's take this out if we need to save some money there. We don't need to do that. Or what if we add this in because I know one of your goals is XYZ. Let's add this in because it's not too expensive. But yeah, generally having, I mean, obviously, like you said, it varies a lot, but 15 to 20,000 is a good kind of I guess mid-level average campaign cost.
All right, we're definitely going to come back and talk more about budget. Rounding out the form, you want to know a little bit about the book? You just want the basic pitch or what's going to be available on the sales page eventually?
Yeah, I mean, basically, and that can be anything from like, why did you write this book? Why do you feel passionately about this subject matter? Or, just the basics of like, what is it about? Like, general, what you think will turn into the back cover copy. Any of that kind of information is just helpful to know as we kind of get started and reach out to you.
What do you hope to accomplish in working with us? What's a good answer for that? I want to be really famous and make all the money.
Yeah, that is not scary. We are looking for people who know what their goals are. Having specific goals is really helpful, and we can help kind of narrow that down, because I think a lot of authors haven't thought past, I want to write a book, and it's like, now I have written a book and I don't know what I want next. So we can help authors, but kind of knowing, okay, I want this to be a stepping stone into my author career, or this is my only book, so I want to give it its best chance at success, or I want to make sure that my book is available to order from barnesandnoble.com, or whatever the case may be. There's so many authors and there are so many different dreams. So we just kind of want to know, what do you want? And is it going to be possible for us to help you get there, basically?
Okay. I'm a debut novelist and I want to be on Jimmy Fallon. How realistic is that?
Not very.
Fair enough.
I mean, if you're a frontlist title at a traditionally published publishing house, that's not unrealistic, but that's not the reality for most authors. So, and that's not to say there's not an angle for certain books or ways that we can try things. But most of those kind of things, Ellen, Oprah, Reese's Book Club, are places that work with, the traditional publishers send them a list of titles to consider, and that's how those kind of books get selected. Again, that doesn't mean we can't reach out about things, especially for books that have current event angles, or an author that may be just as interesting as their book or something like that. But that is going to be one of the toughest things to do.
Gotcha. So what if I say, I don't know, I want to win a Newbery?
So I think that's a little bit different, because that's not something that the, I guess, entry process for that is different. They do look at different things beyond just like, okay, this list of the traditional publisher sends us. So that's going to be mostly the content of your book. That's basically a submission process. So that's a little bit of a different, a horse of a different color to take from the Wizard of Oz.
Gotcha. So the publicist will do the absolute best they can with the book they have to work with, but the quality of the book is going to determine whether or not you're going to be winning that prizes.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, especially for awards and those and honors and those kind of things, like we can absolutely enter you for those things, and we can help you find those things. Because there are so many contests and so many awards and stuff that authors just may not know about. So that's part of what we can do, is help you find things, and help you find things you might win, or might place in. It may not be the Hugos, but that doesn't mean your state doesn't have a science fiction writing competition, So, yeah, I mean, that we can certainly enter for awards and things like that, but ultimately it does come down to the content of the book for those kind of things.
Gotcha. But if I've got a book that has fantastic content, my mother assures me it's wonderful. And we can at least put together a list of all the different types of contests and a plan for when those need to be entered. Would that maybe impact when we should be thinking about publication at all, depending on when we want to be entering for those awards?
No, I generally don't recommend changing a pub date depending on those, because there are so many and they all have very different dates and deadlines and things like that. So I think generally, no, that it shouldn't. It should be more about, when does it make more sense to release this book? If you're a Black author, maybe during Black History Month, or if it's a holiday story, obviously maybe like November or something like that. Those are the kind of things that I would think about a little bit more, rather than like awards or contests or anything like that.
Okay, so holiday story for Christmas or Kwanzaa, whatever comes there in December. We want to be looking at November. Halloween, do we want to be talking September or maybe even August?
Yeah, I think that's generally a good idea, because that way, if we're on an ideal timeline, we're starting. Hold on, I gotta do a version of math in my head. We're starting, early summer, so we can send books to magazines and people who are going to review the book in early summer, give them a chance to get it, give them a chance to read it as they're putting together, okay, spooky stories for, getting ready for Halloween or whatever. Because if you think backwards, it takes a while to get that stuff together, and you want to put it together before we hit Halloween, so that it can give people a chance to get in the mood, or whatever the case may be. So always just kind of thinking several steps backwards, which sounds wild, but that can be really helpful when you're thinking about timing things.
Gotcha. So let's go back to budget a little bit. So let's say 15,000, we said, is, that's table stakes more or less.
I think so. And yeah, and I mean, again, this is not my area of expertise, so I can make guesses and I can be general here, but specifics are going to be tougher, just because that's not something that I do every day.
No, I want the exact formula to guarantee success for my book.
Everybody does, weirdly.
If I'm not on the cover of Time magazine by the end of this year, we've failed.
Yes. Well, it's February. We have time.
Well, looking our esteemed audience knows that we're speaking in general terms, but to give us some idea, let's say, okay, we've got, let's say $20,000 that we're going to put down. So what does that campaign look like? I'll even put the specific parameters. It's going to be a middle grade book. What does a campaign for a middle grade book, and I don't know about talking animals, because I've got a middle grade book about talking animals. What does that campaign look like? And when do I know whether or not I have achieved a successful investment of my $20,000?
So, I guess to answer the last part of your question first, whether you've, achieved a successful investment, that's basically going to be like, okay, again, what are your goals here? Like, are we meeting those goals? And because that's how we put together proposals, is trying to meet the goals that you have. So you have a substantial backlist, and you have long-term author, goals. And so I think that we're not only going to be thinking about this singular book, but we're also going to be thinking about you as an author. So that proposal is going to look a little bit different. But in general terms, I'm actually going to pull up a proposal so I can kind of go through it. We have a section called industry guidance, and basically that is general terminology for we are available to answer your questions, because you're going to have a lot of questions. You may not have as many as maybe a first-time author, but you're going to have people that say, do you want to run this promotion for $90? Reach out to you. So we're a good place for you to go and say, is this worth it? And we'll say, they just started a month ago, probably not. Or yes, this isn't a very established book tour company. I think it's totally worth it to get signed up for one of those. We also do your press kit. We help you look through maybe your website and say or do a website audit and say okay, I think if you want to keep things really cohesive, we talk about color scheme, font, basics of design, and talk about keeping that cohesive across not only your website, but your social media profiles as well. We put together pitch angles that we think are going to be really good for your book and kind of a way to sell your book. And we put together a target list. And basically what that is we're going to reach out to obviously book bloggers and book influencers about reading and reviewing your book, but we're also going to talk to you about writing guest articles for different outlets and publications. So that may be Writer's Digest. It may be, Mr. Shoe Reads or something like that for a middle grade book. So trying to think about opportunities that are not just reviews of your book, but also building your SEO, so when people search for your name, it's coming back with great results, just pages and pages of reviews of your book, interviews that you've done, guest articles that you've written, things like that. And sometimes it's helpful that kind of thing is helpful to reach a wider audience, because if we reach out to a website that doesn't necessarily do book reviews, but they might take a guest article from you, that's going to be reaching a different audience than maybe a book review website will be. So that's what we're trying to do, is kind of spread you all over the internet. We'll reach out to local media, places that you live near, or if you live in a different place and you still have strong ties to your hometown, we can reach out to those places. Or if your book is set in the South and has really strong Southern connections, we can reach out to Southern publications. That can be really helpful. We also talk about, Goodreads and other sites like that, Storygraph, Readerly, getting your book on there, making sure that your profile is optimized as well as your book profile. We can talk to our digital team about social media ads, reader newsletters, Amazon ads, things like that. And that can be for your current book, but also for your backlist titles, because giving those a boost will inevitably help your current release as well. We also do book mailings, and that always includes a handwritten note, but we can also talk about, especially for a fun middle grade title, fun swag items to send out. And so we can send you lots of different ideas, different price points, to help people get excited about the book and help the book stay on their mind. And so once we kind of put that together, all the plans together in the first month, then we start pitching, coordinating coverage, things like that, as we work our way through the target list and kind of figure out, okay, yes, this is working, let's focus here, or this isn't working, are there different outlets we should be trying, or is this just kind of a dead end, let's pivot and try something else.
I never know it's not working. You're just not getting the responses from the people that you're looking for.
Yeah. And sometimes it's timing, sometimes it's, a different book that's similar came out. But we always pivot and figure out, okay, let's find secondary contacts at these places, or, let's focus on radio instead, because we are getting so much interest from radio. So let's focus there and really expand there, since it's going really well.
Gotcha. I'm assuming radio includes podcast or local television shows, if you can.
Yep. Absolutely.
Gotcha. Okay. And so this proposal to this author package that we're going to put together, and we're going to send out to all these people. I'm assuming that when you write out to any book promoter, book person, you're going to refer to them by their name. Hopefully, you've established some kind of relationship with them.
Yes. And so, we do, obviously, having worked in the industry for 22 years, have a lot of great contacts, but we also do new research for each book that we start working on, because we want to find, because every book has different angles, and we want to find the best people to reach out to for that book. So, I might say, oh, immediately, like, I know, Lakita is going to be interested in this book, but I also want to find new people that are going to be interested in the book that I don't know about yet. So how we pitch them very much depends on previous relationship, or if we don't have a previous relationship, okay, here's why I think you'd be interested in this book, basically. We're very, very personal with how we pitch each outlet, so that they know that we're not just, shooting fish in a barrel. We're really thinking that this is going to be a great fit for them, and telling them why.
And Books Forward would never do this, because this is one of the reasons I was so excited to talk with you, because I've been approached by enough publicists now. You start to get a sense of who's a good publicist and who has room to grow. And anytime I get something that just says "Dear Editor" or "Dear Content Producer," all right, well, that's already, unless the book that's listable, I always scroll down just a little bit. Have you got an amazing book, or is it an author I've heard of? Nope. And get out of here. I feel no compulsion to respond to you. If you've used my name and you mention my website, I at the very least feel obligated to write you an email stating why I'm not interested in pursuing the project for now.
Right.
Just for any publicist out there listening, wondering, why didn't Rob Kent ever get back to me? Well, did you call me Dear Editor? Next time, call me Rob.
Yeah. And it's, my heart goes out to those people, because I know it's like, some people are just time wise, and, and the amount of clients they have, it is tough. But yeah, that is something that we are super, super passionate about. And it's like one of our main focuses is personalizing each pitch. Because, we just know from experience, you don't get the same kind of response when you form pitch people as you do when you really personally pitch people and reach out to them and let them know why you're passionate about this book.
You might get lucky if it's a book that I'm interested in.
Yeah.
I'll look past the Dear Editor, it's fine. But
you never know.
I'm not interested. I'm not going to write you first. But what really breaks my heart is the people who send me physical books without checking with me first to see if it's like, I'll get adult books. Like, okay, well, I might read that later for fun, but I'm not going to promote it.
Right.
This wasted part of an author's budget. Don't do that.
Yes. And I will get those occasionally too, like just as a Bookstagrammer, and I'm like, oh, I'm never going to read this. Why? Because how much money it costs, and it's like, it breaks my heart, but like, I can't, I have no interest in this book.
It makes me popular because I know lots of children who love to receive arcs that I have no interest in.
Yep.
What else am I going to do with it? If you want to read it, great. Try and post a review. Let's get them something for this.
Yeah.
So, okay, you put together the pitch proposal that's going to come out. It says, "Dear Rob Kent, my author is interested in appearing at Middle Grade Ninja. What, bare minimum, what do you want to tell me or whoever else about the book and about the author?"
Oh gosh, writing a pitch is definitely an art form. Everybody's pitches look different, which as they should, because everybody has a different style. I was a copy editor, so mine are very short and edited. And other people's are longer, and every kind of outlet is going to be different. If I'm approaching an outlet about interviewing you, I'm obviously going to talk more about like, okay, what does Rob want to talk about? the book will be on the list, but there's also other things. You may want to talk about, being a podcast host and other interests, or other specific parts of the book, or why you wrote it, or your author journey. Whereas if it's simply about the book, I'm going to try and highlight maybe comp titles, but unique things about the book. Why is this book going to be interesting to people, and why are people going to want to read it? So, there's a whole art of crafting a catchy headline, and then writing kind of a hook sentence to grab people's attention, because I tend to not give people the benefit of the doubt and assume that they're going to be bored like 2 sentences in. So I try and like get information in there as quickly as I can. And then I tell them what my ask is. What am I asking of them? I'm asking them to review the book, or I'm asking them to interview you, or I'm asking them to run a guest article, or whatever the case may be. And then we always include a link to the press kit the press folder, which has the press kit, but also downloadable headshot, downloadable book cover, any other kind of materials. Like if it's a middle grade book with illustrations, we may have like downloadable illustrations of the characters or something like that.
And you're sending me a link to or whoever, you're sending a link to go to receive that information, as opposed to an attachment there on the email, or both?
Yes, and it does come across sometimes in Google Drive as an attachment, but for the most part, we link them to that folder so that they can kind of pull whatever they may need.
I know on the website you talk both about, you guys accept both self-published authors as well as traditionally published authors. So one question a traditionally published author might, or one thought a traditionally published author might have is, well, the whole reason I went with a traditional publisher is so they would take care of all of my publicity, and I could just watch my Netflix and every so often check Amazon to see all the sales have gone through the roof. What realistically could we expect for a traditional publishing house to do for a book, and why would we maybe want to go to Books Forward or additional publicists beyond that?
Sure. So, traditional publishing can run the gamut of, being published by one of the big 5, now kind of the big 6 with Amazon, to, maybe an indie publisher. And those will all have different levels of what they're going to do for different clients. One of the big 5, they have in-house teams, but it's going to depend on if you're a frontlist title or not. If you're a frontlist title, they may be blowing it out and they're going to do everything. They generally are going to submit you for industry reviews, so places like School Library Journal, Publishers Weekly, Kirkus Forward, things like that. And they're also going to have a list of other places that they're going to submit the book to, large, media reviewers like LA Review of Books, things like that. And then they're going to have a list probably of book influencers, bloggers, things like that they'll send the book to as well. And then maybe a smaller indie publisher or a vanity publisher. They may do some of that. They may not do all of that. But I always think that's a super valuable question to ask your publisher. Like, what are you guys doing? Is there stuff that I should be doing? And then kind of think about, okay, is it worth it? Like, do you have the budget? And do you want to do more beyond what they're doing, basically? Because there are a lot of things that, there's just endless amounts of things you can do. And that's something that is really overwhelming, I think, when you are, okay, I'm done writing the book. What's next? I don't know. There are so many options. So, asking your publisher can be really helpful, because you can see what they're doing and you can say, okay, I want to do more than that. And that's when you would, possibly hire an outside publicity company. We work with publishers all the time and kind of say, okay, what are you guys doing? How can we complement your efforts? So that may be giving a secondary nudge to some of their contacts, or it may be we just have a different list entirely that we're pursuing, or they may focus on industry outlets and we focus on book influencers and bloggers and things like that, or we focus on your long-term branding career and they're just focused on, this specific book, or we're doing digital. Obviously there's a infinite number of combinations there. But basically what we do when we work with traditionally published authors is try to complement their in-house team's efforts. And that's something that generally works really well. We send them, hey, we got this. If you want to post about it on social media, they'll do the same for us. And so it can be really, really helpful to kind of have an attack from 2 sides if you do have an in-house team and you have them working on publicity for you as well.
So ideally, and there's always going to be the one-off situation, but ideally the in-house team should see this as an opportunity to have more folks on the team all working toward the same goal. Nobody's feeling like,
Yeah.
hey, you reached out to that person, that was going to be our person.
Yes, and we definitely don't want to do that. So we say, send us your list. We basically are already making a list, but we'll cross through that person if they're on your list, because there's always other people out there that we can reach out to. I mean, there's just a vast number of book reviewers and opportunities. There's so many rabbit holes we can go down with every book, and there's always places that we can think of to approach instead, basically.
Okay, silly outsider question, but I'm gonna go ahead and ask it anyway. That's kind of my whole role on this show, is to ask all the outsider questions. We can all learn from my mistakes. But is there any element of competition there where, hey, if I send you the list of who we're thinking about promoting this book to, now next time we go to promote with them, they're not going to be available because Book Forward sent them all their people?
It is unlikely, because, I mean, like I said earlier, a lot of those industry outlets just work with traditional publishers across the board. So, we pitch them differently. The publishers may just send them books because they know that they have that established connection. We may reach out to them because we think this book is a good fit for you because you reviewed this comp title. So we may reach out to them differently, but it also doesn't necessarily, they're not going to say, no, I already have, I'm already reviewing 6 books this month. If it's a book they're really interested in, they're going to say, yeah, let me take a look at it. So it's not like there's a limit or a cap on anything. And also, to be totally transparent, they probably know who we're going to reach out to, and we probably know who they're going to reach out to, just because we're all industry professionals, and we know what's up, and we know the places that everybody needs to be, we know the places that need to be reached out to. So we just aren't going to double up on their efforts, but we probably already knew that existed and have contacts there, if that makes sense.
And for the author who isn't sure what to make of their, because publishers, like anybody else, will present their best self and say, hey, we're going to do an amazing amount of stuff, and oh no, a couple of our people got fired and somebody new came in, or whatever the case may be. How can they get a good read of what's actually going to happen if I reach out to my traditional publisher and I say, hey, what are you guys going to do for the book? And they say, the very best we can. Well, that doesn't
Right.
give specific. Should I be expecting like an itemized list of, we are going to do this?
I think only if you ask for it. It very much will depend on your publisher and on the publicist that you have that's working on your book. But I think asking specific questions is going to get you the best answer. Like, okay, are you submitting for trade reviews from Forward, Kirkus, things like that? Are you going to be reaching out to book talkers? Are you going to be reaching out to book bloggers? So asking specific questions is very helpful, because then they have to say, yes, we are, or no, we're not, or whatever the case may be.
And if I'm wanted to, as I mentioned, Books Forward is amazing, but there are some publicists out there that have room to grow, and I'm assuming they're going to get it all together. Or they're probably listening to us now, taking notes, and it's going to be a whole new them tomorrow. But as of today, there are some publicists out there that frankly I think are making mistakes and shouldn't be worth the investment. And when we're talking something like $15,000-$20,000 or $200,000, whatever that's going to be, what's a reasonable way for an author to audit the experience they've received to make sure they got their value, and also to evaluate a publicist up front to make sure this is somebody that could reasonably be expected to deliver what we expect to receive?
Yeah, I mean, I think hiring a publicist is a really personal experience, or hiring a publicity firm should be a really personal experience, because writing your book is a really personal experience. I mean, I cannot, like I said, I cannot imagine writing a book. So I can't imagine handing your baby off to someone else to kind of take care of. It's almost like getting a babysitter. You have to trust them. You have to have a good feeling of who they are. Do they pay attention? Are they organized? Do they get back to you in a timely manner? Are they complimentary? Do they seem like they are truly passionate about you and your book and doing the publicity for it? So I think on the front end, that there's a personality factor to it. Do you guys mesh? and because that's not going to be the case everywhere, but you're going to be working with these people for a long time. And like you said, this is an investment. So you want to make sure that you're meshing with whoever you hire, because, it's a long-term thing and you want to be comfortable with the direction that you're going in. And then just making, I think having like a kind of hammered in, but what are your goals? Did they help you meet those goals? And you might have tiers of goals, tier one might be hitting the New York Times bestseller list. Okay, maybe that's a 5 to 10 year goal. But, for this book particularly, we look at tier two goals. Okay, did I sell 500 books? Did I book in a launch event or something like that? And so kind of saying, did they help me hit those goals, or did they help me figure out a way that I can hit those goals, or something like that? And that's kind of how I would measure success in a campaign.
Are there any red flags that you would be watching out for right up front?
For like if you're hiring a publicity firm. Yeah, I mean, I think like you said earlier, if they're writing you an email and they're not like addressing you by your name, or they mess up your book title or something like that, I mean, that would be an immediate, like, I wouldn't feel good about it,
I'm an author that goes to them and say, hey, you're going to send this to all the best people. And they're like, yeah, I really want to get on the Middle Grade Ninja podcast. You're going to make that happen, right?
Exactly.
Don't pay for that, esteemed audience. Just send me an email. We'll see what we can make that happen.
No, let me know. You can go through me. I will help you. I know a guy.
Fair enough. So to me, I assume, because they're going to get some form of money up front, they're going to be as nice as possible. How do I evaluate them on the back and make sure they're not somebody that's sending out the dear editor?
Well, you can kind of, I mean, if you're in a good place because you get pitched, so you kind of know what to look for there. But I think, I mean, you're not going to pay for something hopefully before you hire someone. So I think how they approach you is a good indicator of how they are approaching other places. Of course, they're wanting to, like you said, get money from you, so it's going to be a little bit different. But you can ask, I mean, again, asking them detailed questions is really helpful, kind of like you've been interviewing me. I mean, this is the kind of questions that I would expect an author to have when, for an ambassador, when we're on the front end. Are they able to give thorough answers? Or if they're not able to give thorough answers, do they say, let me check with my team, I'll get back to you? And do they get back to you with a really good answer? Because I think that is going to be, indicative of your experience going forward. So that is something that I would look for as well.
Gotcha. And then, I had a burning question right on the tip of my tongue, and it's gone. Oh, and it would have made all the difference. I'm so sorry.
Pop into your head at 2 a.m.
As far as what to expect, we talked about going out and reaching out to bloggers, reviewers, radio programs, all of that. How about school visits? Would that be something that would be reasonable to expect a publicist to book for you? Or
yeah, absolutely. Obviously, that makes sense for some authors and not for some authors. But for middle grade authors, I love that. I think it's such a fun opportunity, especially now that we kind of all know how to use Zoom and things like that. Kind of opens up a whole new world to be able to do author visits with schools. And I know a lot of middle grade authors, YA authors, picture book authors are really passionate about that. And it's so rewarding for those kind of authors. So I love setting up school visits or library, appearances, things like that, readings at bookstores. Yeah, any of that kind of stuff is something that we do frequently and, love to do for authors.
And let's talk money, and then I want to talk about pandemic promotion as well. But let's a little bit about that money conversation. If we're talking $20,000, is it okay? Well, you guys are going to start tomorrow, so here's your check for $20,000. Let me know when I'm famous, or am I getting involved along the way? Are we paying in installments? How might we expect that to go, and what's a reasonable expectation?
So one thing we do look for with authors is, are they going to partner with us in publicity? And so that means, I'm going to email you and say, can you write a guest article? Of course, it's not feasible for everybody, but we are going to want to know that they're open to doing things to help promote the book, because it's your baby. We know it, but we don't know it as well as you do. So we want to know that you're open to doing interviews or doing, guest articles or whatever the case may be. So it's checking out's not really an option. I mean, it might be for some people, but for authors that we work with, we really want them to feel like they're a part of what we're doing. And it's not that they're doing the work, but it's that they're, helping to make sure that places that we're reaching out to, that we have success reaching out to them, because we might be reaching out to them about an interview. I think we usually split up the payments into a monthly installment. So if it's $20,000 over 5 months, we'd probably do $4,000 a month. But we usually schedule pretty far out. Like, what month is it? February. So I think we're scheduling for like early summer, late spring, early summer right now. Yeah, like May, June, July. We do sometimes have faster turnarounds than that, but I mean, we just spots book up, and so we do try to again encourage people to reach out to us pretty early on, so that we know we can get them fit into the schedule and everything.
I assume that there's some sort of or some amount of wiggle room depending on an author's individual situation, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Gotcha. And then as far as the pandemic goes, obviously that's going to change. I know school visits it's more or less virtual only right now until, but knock on wood, we've said a few times that hopefully we're heading out of this thing, and hopefully we are, but there's could be another variant around the corner. Who knows with this? How do you work around that? How has that impacted what you're able to do for people?
So the good news is a lot of what we do is email. So that part of things didn't change a ton. Mail delays were a little tricky. There was a printing problems, just literally getting books. So that was a little bit tricky. So, but we've kind of been navigating through that, and people, bloggers, reviewers, places like that have been really great about accepting ebooks when we just don't have print arcs available, or when a shipping container sinks to the bottom of the ocean with all the advanced reader copies of a book, which happened with a cookbook recently. I mean, it's just, there've been all kinds of weird bumps, but I will say the biggest change has been events, like you said. We have been setting up in-person events here and there. But like you said, we don't know what's going to change next week. So, I mean, when this airs, we could be doing in-person events all over the place. I don't know. I hope so, but it's changed a lot. So 2020 was very much, yes, let's do every virtual event possible because nobody else is doing anything. Like, let's just do it. But bookstores kind of took a step back, reevaluated at the end of 2020 and said, we're not making money off of this. Like, we're having to staff these kind of things, have people moderate them, but people aren't necessarily buying books like they would for an in-person event. So 2021 was a little bit more, there were fewer virtual events available. So we're still pitching virtual events, but we really needed to make sure that it was something that made sense or had a point of view. So we're not just pitching, a launch event every single night, because we don't want authors to show up to a launch event and not have anybody in their virtual crowd. That's no fun. So we try to make sure we pitch, one big launch event, and that's just like we would do in person. But now it's kind of virtually, and it's also depending on where they are. Some places are more open to doing in-person events than other places. So we kind of just evaluate as we go. And authors have been very, very great about being flexible and just doing what makes the most sense when we get to that part of their campaign.
I don't know. I thought I had about money, not to focus on it, but if you're doing events, I think it's not unreasonable to charge speaking fees. If you want me on your panel, great. That's an hour of my time. Let's determine what that's going to be worth. Let's talk about what it's going to cost to have me for a school visit or whatever else. And when I say me, of course, I mean whatever author we're talking about. Is there a way to sort of try to budget that against the cost of the promoting? So we're saying, okay, well, it's $20,000, but don't worry, we're going to make sure that we get at least 10,000 of that back in speaking fees along the way as we go. Is that even reasonable to be talking about?
I don't think it's unreasonable, but I'm going to be very honest with you that no, you should not expect that. Budgetarily, especially for schools, there's not a budget for that kind of thing, and you're going to miss out on a lot of opportunities if you're only looking for paid speaking opportunities. And I don't know that we really would present that for a school visits, we would probably say that doesn't make sense for you, to be quite honest. Because I kind of think about it as like, this is an investment in yourself, and this is you wrote the book, and this is the secondary part of being a writer, is promoting yourself. And so this is not the part that you're not gonna make money off of this unless you have won all kinds of awards and you're a bestseller. It's like maybe 1% of authors that charge that kind of thing successfully anyway. So I would say that for the most part, those kind of appearances, I would recommend to an author that they don't charge speaking fees or anything like that.
And then the idea here is that because you're going to have been so widely promoted and covered, the book is going to continue to sell, and then the royalties will presumably make up that additional investment at some point down the road.
That's the hope. I mean, we definitely don't say, you're going to make your money back or anything like that. It's definitely an investment into, it's great for like we said, long-term author careers, because you're building a base. So for your next book, you're going to have all these people to go back to, hopefully see higher sales for that. For people who are one-time authors, they have a book, they want to get it out of their system, and then they're done. We do focus probably more on sales there than we would for maybe somebody who's hoping to have a longer author career. That's more of a long journey that we kind of have longer term goals for. So, of course, sales are important for every single book, but we want to make sure that we think about what does the future look like for somebody who's writing more than one book. So we don't, we never promise like, you're going to make your money back or you're going to hit this certain number of sales, because there's really no way to know what that's going to look like down the line.
No, I want you to be the one person in publishing that can promise a guarantee.
Good luck. Let me know if you find that person. I want to talk to them.
Sure. Ellen Whitfield, this has been an absolute pleasure. I'm watching our time, and I know it's going away from us rapidly. You've said so many wonderfully intelligent things, and obviously I need to follow that up with a question. Ellen Whitfield, have you ever seen a flying saucer and/or a ghost?
Not that I know of. I think flying saucers, I feel like would have noticed more. For the ghost thing, I feel like there's something behind me. You don't see it, but is it there? Was it there? I don't know. I'm open to things. I think there are some things that I just don't have the capacity to know everything about, and that's okay.
If this will be my final question for today. If there was one thing you could impart to every author who's watching or listening to us, one thing, however many things you like, that would make a difference in their approach to publicity, that you wish they'd take to heart before they get started promoting their book, what would you tell them?
I gave a presentation this weekend, and I forgot to say my favorite quote, so I will use this opportunity to say my favorite quote. This book, you wrote it, but this is the second part of your job. And so, to quote Ron Swanson, you don't want to do things halfway. You don't want to, half-ass one thing. You want to or two things. You want to whole-ass one thing. So basically, don't just do the writing and then peter out. Do the promotion too, because you are going to be your best advocate, because this is your baby. So do what you can to help make the book a success, not just by doing a great job writing it, by doing what you can to help promote it, whether that's asking your publicity team questions to make sure that you know what's going on, or hiring an outside publicity firm, or emailing your friends and family and saying like, hey, help me promote my book by doing XYZ. So any of that kind of stuff, I think authors a lot of times are embarrassed or feel like they shouldn't do that. You absolutely should do that. You are your book's best advocate. So make sure that you are going to be the one who is passionately promoting it.
Where can esteemed audience find you online, follow you on social media, and all that good stuff?
I actually do have a Bookstagram. It's at Reading the End on Instagram. You can email me at ellen@booksforward.com, or visit our website at booksforward.com. And we've got all kinds of great information on there. We have a blog that answers, frequently asked questions from authors, but we also have like fun reading lists and things like that. We have frequently asked questions. You can sign up for our influencer newsletter if you are a book reviewer. But yeah, email me if you have questions.
Whitfield, it has been a privilege and a pleasure. Thank you so much for making the time for me and for our esteemed audience. I think everybody learned a whole lot about promotion here today. As always, esteemed audience, for more information about me, for the back catalog of the show, and more important interviews with all the world's best people, head to middlegradeninja.com. Download your free copy of Banneker Bones and the Giant Robot Bees. It will change your life. And God willing, I'm alive. I'll see you next week.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. It was such a pleasure.